Across the courts and cathedrals of Europe, power was not only written in blood and law, it was forged in gold, jewels, and sacred relics. From the thrones of emperors to the altars of kings, regalia became the physical embodiment of authority. Every crown told a story, every jewel carried the weight of battles won, kingdoms lost, and faiths defended. To place a crown upon one's head was not simply to rule, it was to claim divine right, to stand as the chosen protector of an empire, a nation, or a church. This is the tale of Europe's crown jewels, the secrets of regalia that bound monarchs to God, inspired loyalty, and terrified their enemies. From the splendor of Byzantium to the dazzling treasures of Britain, we will journey through the treasures that shaped history itself. Welcome to the Crown Jewels, Secrets of Europe's Royal Regalia. In medieval Europe, kingship was never just about ruling armies or governing lands, it was about embodying a sacred order. Objects like the crown, orb, and scepter were far more than symbols of wealth, they represented divine authority itself. The crown, unbroken in its circle, symbolized eternity and the ruler's bond with God. The orb, topped with a cross, proclaimed dominion over the earthly world under heaven's guidance. The scepter, straight and unyielding, was a staff of justice, a reminder that kings were expected to govern firmly, yet fairly, to the people of the time. Seeing these objects together was not simply a display of riches, it was to witness the essence of monarchy itself. They gave shape and substance to the invisible idea of kingship. Without them, a ruler might be powerful, but with them, he was sacred. The regalia elevated kings from mortals into living symbols of divine order. Every crown told a story. Its gems were not chosen at random, they were sermons in stone. Rubies, with their fiery red glow, stood for courage and the blood shed to defend the kingdom. Sapphires, cool and deep as the sky, reflected heavenly wisdom. Emeralds symbolized rebirth, hope, and the renewal of rule. To wear such a crown was to be cloaked in virtues that every monarch aspired to embody. But the crown was also heavy, sometimes deliberately so. Its weight was meant to remind the sovereign of the immense burden of responsibility placed upon their head. The shimmer of jewels dazzled those who looked upon it, but for the ruler who bore it, the crown was both an honor and a burden. To wear it was to accept a destiny larger than only self, a destiny woven with both glory and sacrifice. The coronation was the most sacred moment of a monarch's life. In towering cathedrals, surrounded by the echo of choirs and the scent of incense, a king would kneel before the altar. Bishops, cloaked in rich vestments, would bless the regalia, declaring that these objects were not mere treasures, but vessels of divine power. When the crown was finally lowered upon the sovereign's head, it was said not to be placed by human hands, but by the will of God himself. For the nobles in attendance, the coronation was a binding oath of loyalty. For the common people, it was a moment of awe and reassurance, a reminder that order still reigned, that God's chosen protector stood ready to guard the land. The ceremony transformed a man into a king, and without it, no ruler was considered truly legitimate. For artists of the Middle Ages, the crown jewels were never ordinary objects. In paintings and illuminated manuscripts, monarchs were depicted bathed in heavenly light, their regalia glowing as if touched by God himself. A crown was drawn not just as gold, but as a halo. An orb was not merely round, it was the world itself, entrusted to the ruler's care. The scepter became the rod of justice, as unbreakable as divine law. Such images carried a powerful message. To defy the crown was to defy heaven. Monarchs were not portrayed as men or women of flesh and bone, but as chosen vessels of divine will. And it was through their regalia, the crowns, the jewels, the relics, that their authority was made visible. Even today, these symbols continue to dazzle, not just because of their material beauty, but because they remind us of how power was once made sacred, untouchable, and eternal. Long before crowns became glittering displays of diamonds and pearls, Europe's earliest regalia were born in the shadows of monasteries. In the early Middle Ages, kings and emperors sought legitimacy not through riches, but through relics of the saints. A simple iron crown, blessed with fragments of the true cross, could command more reverence than a jewel-studded diadem. For the people of the time, holiness was the highest form of power, and a crown infused with relics was believed to bind heaven and earth. These sacred origins remind us that regalia were not created to dazzle alone, they were instruments of faith. To wear a holy crown was to proclaim that one's authority did not come from conquest alone, but from the blessings of the divine. Perhaps no moment captures the sacred nature of regalia better than the coronation of Charlemagne in the year 800. Inside St. Peter's Basilica, the Pope himself placed the imperial crown upon the Frankish king's head, declaring him Emperor of the Romans. The message was unmistakable. The crown was not earned by the sword alone, it was a gift from God, bestowed through the Church. From that day forward, every European monarch dreamed of wearing such a crown. It was not just metal and gemstone, it was a divine seal, a sign that the ruler had been chosen to stand above all others. To deny the crown was to deny God's plan, and to wear it was to hold the fate of nations. Perhaps no moment captures the sacred nature of regalia better than the coronation of Charlemagne in the year 800. Inside St. Peter's Basilica, the Pope himself placed the imperial crown upon the Frankish king's head, declaring him Emperor of the Romans. The message was unmistakable. The crown was not earned by the sword alone, it was a gift from God, bestowed through the Church. From that day forward, every European monarch dreamed of wearing such a crown. It was not just metal and gemstone, it was a divine seal, a sign that the ruler had been chosen to stand above all others. To deny the crown was to deny God's plan, and to wear it was to hold the fate of nations. Some of the earliest crowns were not adorned with diamonds, but with relics of tiny bones of saints, drops of holy oil, or fragments of sacred cloth. These relic crowns were considered vessels of miracles. A ruler who wore them was believed to be shielded by the saints themselves. When kings processed through their cities, people would kneel not only for their sovereign, but for the holiness radiating from the regalia. Such crowns remind us that medieval kingship was inseparable from the Church. To rule with a relic crown was to stand as a living bridge between heaven and earth. It was not wealth that gave the regalia their power, it was faith. Across Europe, cathedral treasuries became the guardians of regalia. Crowns, sceptres, and orbs were not kept in palaces, but in holy shrines, protected by monks and priests. Before every coronation, the regalia were brought out with solemn ceremony, as if retrieving holy relics from a sacred tomb. This reinforced a vital truth: the jewels of kingship did not belong to the monarch, they belonged to God, entrusted to the ruler only for as long as he reigned. This sacred guardianship gave the regalia a unique aura. Unlike any other treasure, they could not be bought or sold, for they were bound not to wealth, but to eternity. For medieval rulers, regalia were not possessions, but responsibilities. To wear the crown was to accept a sacred burden. In artwork of the time, kings are often shown kneeling, humbled before God even as they are exalted before men. The orb in their hand was not a symbol of ownership, but of stewardship of the world entrusted to them by heaven. The scepter was not a weapon of tyranny, but a staff of guidance. The sacred origins of regalia teach us that the jewels of kingship were never meant to glorify the ruler alone. They were reminders that kingship itself was a divine vocation, a calling, not a privilege. If there is one place in the world where regalia and history walk hand in hand, it is the Tower of London. For nearly 1,000 years, these ancient walls have guarded England's crown jewels, the very symbols of monarchy, conquest, and survival. From the days of William the Conqueror to the present reign, the tower has been more than a fortress. It has been a vault of legitimacy. Every coronation since 1661 has drawn upon the regalia stored here. Within these stone walls lies not just treasure, but the very identity of monarchy itself. To gaze upon them is to see England's story written in gold, silver, and stone. Among these treasures shines St. Edward's crown, is the centerpiece of every coronation. Crafted of solid gold and set with over 400 gemstones, it weighs more than 2 kilograms. Heavy, almost burdensome, it was designed to remind monarchs that the weight of kingship is no light matter. Since the restoration of Charles II, every English sovereign has felt its pressure on their brow. It is not worn for comfort, but for meaning. When placed upon the head of a new monarch, it announces to the world that authority has passed, not through inheritance alone, but through a sacred right reaching back into the mists of time. Yet, if one crown captures the imagination of millions, It is the imperial state crown. Unlike the heavy Street Edward's crown, this masterpiece is worn more often, shimmering in parliament and ceremonies of state. Its jewels tell their own epic stories. The Cullinan II diamond, a gift from South Africa, cut from the largest diamond ever found, the Black Prince's ruby, carried into battle by English kings, and Street Edward's sapphire, a relic believed to have adorned the ring of Edward the Confessor. Each gem is a chronicle in itself, linking England's monarchy to centuries of conquest, faith, and empire. When the crown glitters under the light, it is not merely beauty on display, it is history incarnate. But the regalia are not meant to be museum pieces, they are living instruments of ritual, central to one of the world's most ancient ceremonies, the coronation, in Westminster Abbey, surrounded by choirs, incense, and the prayers of the realm. The monarch is crowned not by politicians, but by the church. The anointing with holy oil, the handing of orb and scepter, the placing of the crown symbolize a covenant between ruler, people, and God. The scene is timeless. Though kings and queens change, the ritual remains the same. It is this continuity, this unbroken line of tradition, that makes the English crown jewels more than treasury. They are the heartbeat of monarchy itself. Today, millions journey to the Tower of London each year to witness the crown jewels for themselves. They walk slowly, in hushed awe, past the crowns of kings, the scepters of queens, and the great golden orb of state. Some see them as relics of empire, others as priceless works of art. Yet all who look upon them understand that they are more than gold and gems. The English regalia have outlasted dynasties, revolutions, and wars. They endure not because they are beautiful, but because they embody the very essence of continuity. They are the symbols through which monarchy survives, reminding us that while kings and queens are mortal, the crown itself is eternal. In France, regalia was more than a symbol of kingship, it was sacred. The French believed their monarchy had been blessed directly by heaven. At the heart of this divine claim lay the holy ampulla, a small vial of oil said to have descended from heaven itself during the baptism of Clovis, the first Christian king of the Franks. Every coronation at Rheims Cathedral drew upon this miraculous oil. When a new king was anointed, it was not merely a ritual, it was a spiritual rebirth, affirming that the French sovereign was God's chosen ruler on earth. To defy him was not just treason, it was heresy. At the center of French regalia shone the legendary crown of Charlemagne. More than an ornament, it was a relic of empire, tying French kings to the greatest monarch of the medieval West. Decorated with sapphires, emeralds, and golden fleur-de-lis, it proclaimed France as the true heir of Christian Europe. When placed upon a monarch's head, the crown declared more than authority over land. It proclaimed a sacred destiny, that the French king was not just ruler of a nation, but protector of Christendom. The regalia extended beyond the crown. The hand of justice scepter symbolized a king's duty to rule fairly, while the sword joyeuse, attributed to Charlemagne himself, embodied strength and military might. Draped in robes embroidered with golden fleur-de-lis, French kings appeared less as mortals than as living icons. Every object had meaning, every jewel told a story, and together they transformed the monarch from a man into a sacred figure, chosen to uphold both justice and faith. But no treasure, however sacred, is safe from the fury of revolution. In 1789, the French monarchy collapsed, and with it, the aura of its regalia. By 1793, amid the storm of the revolution, mobs and officials seized the royal treasures. Crowns were stripped of jewels, melted down, or destroyed in the name of liberty. The sacred crown of Charlemagne, worn by centuries of kings, was lost forever. Where once regalia had given legitimacy, it now symbolized tyranny. France sought to erase monarchy itself, and with it, the objects that bound kings to heaven. Yet not all was lost. Fragments of the French regalia survived and today rest in the Louvre. The great sword joyeuse, the hand of justice, and remnants of crowns now sit behind glass, stripped of their former glory but still echoing centuries of majesty. Visitors who walk past these relics see more than gold or stone. They see a vanished world of the triumph of kings, the devotion of believers, and the rage of revolutionaries who sought to break the chain of monarchy forever. The French regalia is now a memory in fragments, but one that continues to tell a story of power, faith, and the rise and fall of dynasties. The Holy Roman Empire was neither fully holy, nor Roman, nor truly an empire, but for nearly 1,000 years, its rulers claimed divine authority. At the center of their power stood the imperial regalia, a sacred collection of treasures that crowned emperors and bound them to heaven. Coronations often took place in Aachen, the city of Charlemagne, whose memory cast a long shadow over medieval Europe. As bishops lowered the crown upon the emperor's head, the message was clear: here stood not merely a king, but the chosen defender of Christendom. The crown itself was unlike any other in Europe. Octagonal in shape, it echoed the heavenly Jerusalem described in Scripture. Its panels shimmered with sapphire and emerald, while delicate enamels portrayed kings and prophets of the Bible. To wear this crown was to bear the weight of history and heaven alike. It proclaimed the emperor as the heir of Charlemagne, the protector of Rome, and the guardian of Christian Europe. No jewel spoke so loudly of both sacred duty and worldly ambition. The regalia extended beyond the crown. The imperial sword symbolized military might, carried before emperors in procession to remind all of their power to defend faith and law. The golden orb, topped with a cross, declared Christ's dominion over the world and the emperor's role as its earthly steward. Together, these relics forged an image of rulership unlike any other. The emperor was both warrior and priest, a bridge between the secular and the sacred. In an age of divided loyalties, the regalia gave his claim a divine shield, yet the regalia also became weapons in a struggle for supremacy. Popes and emperors clashed endlessly over who held true authority. Was it the emperor, crowned with relics of empire, or the pope, who claimed the right to crown and to uncrown any ruler? In this eternal contest, the regalia stood at the center. To possess them was to claim legitimacy. To lose them was to face ruin. They were more than jewels, they were instruments of power, bargaining chips in the great chessboard of medieval Europe. Today, the regalia of the Holy Roman Empire rests not in Aachen nor Rome, but in Vienna's Hofburg Palace. Visitors stand before the imperial crown, the orb, the sword, and even the fabled Holy Lance, said to have pierced the side of Christ. Though stripped of political power, these relics continue to inspire awe. They remind us that for centuries, emperors believed their rule was not a human contract but a divine mission. The regalia of the Holy Roman Empire reveals a world where faith and politics were inseparable, and where the glitter of jewels carried the weight of eternity. In Russia, coronations were not just ceremonies, they were holy mysteries. Deep within the Kremlin's Dormition Cathedral, beneath frescoes of saints and angels, czars were crowned in rituals that fused Byzantine splendor with Russian tradition. The patriarch anointed the monarch with sacred oil, declaring him God's chosen ruler of all Rus. From that moment, the czar was not only a political leader but also a spiritual father to his people. The regalia of Russia became the bridge between heaven and earth, binding the czar's fate to divine will. At the heart of Russian regalia lies the monarch's cap. Unlike the jeweled crowns of Western Europe, it was shaped in the style of the East, a rounded, fur-lined, and crowned with a cross. Legend held that it was a gift from the Byzantine emperor to Vladimir Monomakh in the 12th century, linking Russia to the legacy of Constantinople. To wear this crown was to claim the inheritance of Byzantium of the Second Romania and to declare Moscow as the Third Rome, the final guardian of Orthodox faith. In later centuries, the regalia of the Romanovs grew even more magnificent. The imperial scepter, crowned with the dazzling Orlov diamond, symbolized authority without equal. The golden orb, topped with a cross, proclaimed the Tsar as ruler of both earthly and spiritual realms. Clad in heavy crimson robes embroidered with double-headed eagles, the Tsar appeared less as a mortal man and more as a figure of destiny. These treasures embodied a power that seemed eternal, rooted in faith and magnified by sheer spectacle. But even crowns can shatter under the weight of history. In 1917, revolution swept through Russia, and the Romanovs fell. The once untouchable regalia, once the pride of the czars, faced destruction, yet fate preserved them. Hidden away during the chaos of revolution and civil war, the treasures survived, even as the dynasty that once wielded them perished. The regalia became silent witnesses to a vanished empire, relics of a monarchy swept away by the storm of modernity. Today, the Russian regalia rests safely within the Kremlin armory in Moscow. The great imperial crown of Catherine the Great, adorned with thousands of diamonds and a blazing red spine, stands beside the monarch's cap and the imperial scepter. For visitors, these relics are more than museum pieces. They are echoes of an empire that claimed to be eternal, symbols of faith, authority, and divine destiny. Though the Romanovs are long gone, the regalia endures, preserving the memory of Russia's czars and the grandeur of a world lost to revolution. For nearly 1,000 years, Westminster Abbey has echoed with the solemn words of coronation. Here, beneath soaring Gothic arches, kings and queens of England have taken their vows before God and nation. At the heart of the ritual lies St. Edward's crown, a heavy, solid, and glittering with gold. It is more than an ornament. It is a burden of duty, a symbol of divine responsibility passed from one generation to the next. Every coronation reminds the world that the monarchy is not just historia, it is a living tradition. The British crown jewels are unrivaled in their splendor. St. Edward's crown, used only at coronations, is joined by the imperial state crown, worn by monarchs on great occasions. Set with over 3,000 stones, including the Black Prince's ruby, the Cullinan II diamond, and the legendary St. Edward's sapphire, the crown is a history book written in jewels. Each gem tells a story of conquest, diplomacy, and empire. To wear it is to carry centuries of triumph and struggle upon one's brow. Among the regalia, the sovereign's scepter with cross holds special awe. At its tip gleams the Cullinan I diamond, known as the Great Star of Africa. Cut from the largest diamond ever found, it weighs over 530 carats, making it the largest clear-cut diamond in the world. This scepter is more than an ornament of power. It is a reminder of empire, of Britain's global reach, and of a monarchy that once ruled over land spanning the globe. To this day, it remains the most dazzling symbol of royal majesty anywhere in the world. Unlike other regalia locked in distant museums, the crown jewels are still alive in ritual and still fiercely guarded. For centuries, they have been housed in the Tower of London, protected by yeoman warders, the legendary beefeaters. They have survived fire, war, and even attempted theft. During the English Civil War, Oliver Cromwell ordered many royal treasures melted down. But when the monarchy was restored, new jewels were forged, carrying forward the unbroken thread of royal tradition. Today, millions come to see them, shimmering under armed guard, silent yet eternal. Even in the modern age, the crown jewels remain at the heart of Britain's monarchy. When the monarch emerges from Westminster Abbey, wearing the imperial state crown and holding the orb and scepter, the world witnesses a ritual unchanged for centuries. The jewels may glitter with gold and diamonds, but their true power lies in continuity. They remind the nation and the world that while monarchs come and go, the institution endures. The crown jewels are not relics of the past, they are living symbols of unity, tradition, and the enduring story of a kingdom that still bows to its crown. For centuries, crowns, scepters, and sacred relics defined the meaning of kingship. They were more than treasures of gold and gemstone, as if they were vessels of belief, guardians of tradition, and weapons of power. Though empires have fallen and monarchies have crumbled, these regalia endure. Behind glass, in museums and palaces, they still whisper of glory and sacrifice. To look upon them is to see the very soul of a civilization that believed in the divine right of kings. The crown jewels remind us that history is not only written in ink or carved in stone. Sometimes, it is cut into diamonds, polished into gold, and passed from one monarch to the next. They are symbols of authority, continuity, and human ambition, as secrets of Europe's royal regalia, forever shining with the brilliance of power.